in the afternoon, time for our regularly scheduled City Commission meeting. It's good to see everybody virtually. Once again, under the Governor's executive order, we will be meeting virtually. I would now like to call on Mayor Pro Tem. Are you on?
Yes, I am.
Sure. Commissioner Williams-Cox, will you please handle the invocation for us this afternoon?
Thank you. Given where we are in our nation today, I'm compelled to read to us Psalms 122, starting at verse 6, that says, "Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Peace be within thy walls, and prosperity within thy palaces. For my brethren and companions' sake, I will now say, peace be within thee. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek thy good." And a second scripture like unto it from the New Testament, Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Thank you, Mayor.
I could not think of a more appropriate invocation on today, and thank you so much for your leadership, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Would you please join us virtually? If you do not have a flag in front of you, please picture it in your mind and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving forward, Mr. City Manager, do we have any agenda modifications for today?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. We've got a few modifications. The materials have been added to item 1103, which is a diversity and inclusion update. Items 1108 and 1109 of your agenda have been combined. They are now under item 1108. And finally, item 1110 has been added. It is a Tallahassee Police Department update from Police Chief Lawrence Revel.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Do we have any presentations today, Mr. City Manager?
No, sir, no presentations.
Great. Under announcements, I'd like to turn it over to the City Attorney for 4.01.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Commission is required by law to announce the following matter regarding a proposed brownfield. In-person and virtual community meetings will be held by HTG Lafayette LLC, the developer of a proposed affordable housing project to be located near the intersection of Magnolia Drive and Lafayette Street in Tallahassee. The site is proposed to be designated as the Lafayette Gardens Reuse Area. The meeting will be held on June 16th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. located at the Moon, 1105 East Lafayette Street, and on June 16th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. in a virtual format with login information to be posted on the site coincident with this announcement. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions, colleagues? Seeing none, we'll move forward. This is normally when we have citizen input on agenda items. Mr. Cook will walk us through on every item, whether we've had citizen input. And so we will move forward. We have no appearances, I believe, before the City Commission today. Is that correct, Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Excellent. And by the way, let me note that we do not have a public hearing at 6 o'clock today. We just have the normally scheduled City Commission meeting, and we will go until we are done. We are now on the consent agenda. Mr. City Manager, have any items been pulled off of the consent agenda?
No, sir. No items have been pulled.
Okay. Seeing no items pulled off consent, is there a motion for the, excuse me, Mr. Cook, are there any public comments on the consent agenda?
Mayor, there are no comments on the consent items.
Move acceptance of the consent items.
It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Bryant. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. We are now under City Commission action 9.01. Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, the Treasurer Clerk will introduce this item.
I apologize. Mr. Clerk.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. And I'll actually have each of the next few items. You have a number of board and committee appointments.
Yes, sir.
And I'll introduce each of those to you. This item 9.01 is for reappointment of Dr. William Christiansen to the Sinking Fund Commission. As you know, that group of the three-member citizen group meets with you as a Sinking Fund Commission. They also serve as our investment advisory committee. We're recommending reappointment of Dr. Christiansen to a second term. We do not have any citizen comment on this item, but I will entertain questions if you have any.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions? Is there a motion?
Move acceptance.
It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Mr. Clerk, 9.02, please.
9.02 is seeking reappointment of two individuals to seats on the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. Each of those individuals, if reappointed, would serve a term that runs 3 years through June of 2023. Again, each of those are reappointments. Brought to you Kyle Rojas and Sonny Phillips. No citizen comment on this item either.
Excellent. Thank you. Colleagues, any questions for the clerk? Seeing none, is there a motion on the table?
Move approval.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Bryant, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. 9.03, Mr. Clerk.
Mayor and Commissioners, this item is for your Planning Commission. It is to recommendation to reappoint Leslie Jacobs, who had served a partial first term, which expires on June 30th. This would reappoint her to a term that runs through June of 2023. Again, no citizen comment on this item either.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
as a former member of the Planning Commission, I offer the motion that we accept the recommendation before us.
Second.
Wonderful. It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. 9.04, Mr. Clerk.
Again, Mayor and Commissioners, this is requesting appointment of two individuals for reappointment to the Tallahassee-Leon County Minority Women and Small Business Enterprise Board. That group has appointees from the city and the county. These are two of your appointees. Gallup Franklin and Keith Bowers are recommended for reappointment. No citizen comment here, as with the other items.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions or motions?
Mr. Mayor, I did have a question.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Jim, you and I talked yesterday about the chamber's appointees to this committee. We have an update on that.
Yes, not additional information, but let me update the group on the question that was asked. There are, in addition to the city and county seats, there are appointees from the Big Bend, Capital City, and Greater Tallahassee chambers. On the attachment, if you look at that, the term for those individuals identifies an expiration of March of 19. We are seeking some further clarification on that, but I feel sure that those are dates that were entered in our system so that we would have a complete roster and that those dates are placeholders. I do not think they're expired terms. I'm virtually certain of that, but the piece I want to clarify for you, and we will update this roster when I get it, is what expiration date should be entered there. And that way you and citizens who can see this information will know the expiration dates. So don't believe you have anybody serving an expired term, but we will get you a clarification. Wasn't able to get that before this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Jim. With that being said, I move acceptance of the recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. It's been properly moved, seconded by Commissioner Bryant. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Do we have any other business to come before us under the City Commission action? Seeing none, move on to the introduction of ordinances, and we will begin, Madam Attorney, with 10.01.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 10.01 is introduction of ordinance number 20-0-21, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 3 of the Tallahassee Code of General Ordinances relating to the municipal code enforcement, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for June 17th, 2020. Let the record reflect that the ordinance has been introduced.
Now, these do not require any City Commission action, but of course we'll entertain questions. First question is, Mr. Clerk, have we had any public comment on 10.01?
I had to unmute. No, we have not received comment on 10.01.
Great. Madam Attorney, I appreciate your time fielding my questions on this item. Just so that we can have that conversation on the record, walk us through what are the powers and responsibilities of the Code Enforcement Board in regards to filing for foreclosure as stated in state law, and how does this proposal impact their ability to do so? Will they continue to have the power and the opportunity to do so?
Yes, Mayor. The state law specifically provides that they can authorize the city attorney to file an action for foreclosure. Normally, this comes by way of the city staff or the city commission having an interest in property, and we would provide that information to the Code Enforcement Board, and they would authorize the foreclosure. So this provision does not take away that authority. That authority is provided by state law.
Does the language in this introduction mirror the state law? Is it the same language, or does it deviate from the state language? And if so, what's the difference?
The language is not exactly what is in state law, but it does provide that the city attorney would be the authority that would be filing the action. So it doesn't take away the ability of the Code Enforcement Board, but it does not say in there Code Enforcement Board.
Okay, so it is slightly different than what state law states.
Yes, it is slightly different, but it takes no authority because the authority is provided by state law.
Okay, so it does not change their legal authority. Okay, good. Any other questions for the Madam Attorney on this particular issue? Hearing none, let's go to 10.02, please. Madam Attorney, will you be handling that, or will that go through the City Manager's office through planning with Cherie Bryant?
I'll be handling that, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Item number 10.02 is introduction of ordinance number 20-Z-19, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee amending the Leon County Public Health Unit New Mount Zion AME Church Plan Unit Development on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for July 8th, 2020. We ask that the record reflect that the ordinance has been introduced.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comments on 10.02?
We do not have comment on 10.02.
Excellent. Colleagues, do you have any questions for Madam Attorney on 10.02? Seeing none, thank you. We are now on 10.03. Madam Attorney.
Thank you. Item number 10.03, introduction of ordinance numbers 20-Z-20, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending the Governor's Park Corners Plan Unit Development Concept Plan on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, adopted and established by the City Commission, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The first and only public hearing is scheduled for July 8th, 2020. We ask that the record reflect that the ordinance was introduced. Additionally, there was a Planning Commission meeting on last evening, and in that meeting, the Planning Commission added an additional condition. So when this ordinance returns to you at public hearing, it will contain that provision as well as a notation that it has been amended since introduction.
Will you walk us through that notation?
Yes, Mayor.
Well, let me ask you this, Madam Attorney, when you're looking, is it a substantial change to what is being proposed?
No, it is not. There was an addition of a, let me read it for you here, a egress and ingress way provided to the property.
Okay.
But I think that pretty much covers it. I don't know if Wayne might be able to add more to that.
Heather, if you are on, do you have any other additional comments to add?
No, the city attorney covered it nicely. It just had to deal with an access egress condition by the planning commission.
Okay. Thank you. Colleagues, do you have any questions on the proposed ordinance 10.03 and the addendum that the planning commission put in place last night as well? Yeah. Okay, excellent. Madam Attorney, do we have anything else to come before us under introductions of ordinances?
No, Mary, there are no more introductions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We are now on policy formation and direction 11.01. Mr. Manager, I will turn it over to you to introduce Mr. Doolin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Over the last 3 months, as our community and all communities around the United States have addressed COVID-19, we've been keeping you informed. It's been very fluid and very dynamic. We have altered the services we provide our community. We have changed how we interact, and we've been keeping you up to date. In your agenda materials today, you have a full summary. I will not go all the way through that summary, and Mr. Doolin will provide us a cursory update. Once he's done, I would like our Parks and Recreation Director, Ashley Edwards, to provide a little overview about a critical event that we have coming up in about a month. We're about a month away from our 4th of July celebration. We know that's a very big celebration for our community, and we know the crowds the attendees are many. And so we have a recommendation on that event, and I'd like our Parks and Recreation Director to give a little background on that and explore that issue. So with that, Christian, if you wouldn't mind walking us through a summary of where we are today. Also share what the latest news from the state of Florida is today. We heard around midday, and then hand off to Ashley, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Manager, and hello, Commission. So the item details a host of actions that we've been taking to stay focused on mitigating the spread of the disease, preserving our health in the workforce as well as the community, and staying focused on our services. Naturally, we continue to follow the CDC and state and local healthcare professional guidance. As the item details, our response recently has included a first-of-its-kind partnership for rapid testing for employees, the development of a contact tracing unit within the city, and a review committee for reopening plans. State, national, local guidance evolves. As we saw earlier today, the governor shared his executive order that will go into effect. I can go into further detail if you'd like about what those adjustments include. But at the highest level, these adjustments are to the prior restrictions that further indicate the state will be moving into phase 2 on Friday. And that, they include moving from groups of 10, a lot of retail and bar capacity, and the resumption of lower capacity facilities like concert halls and movie theaters. This item also includes a list of criteria that our decisions as a city on adjustments are based on, and the services and programs and how those change. And to go deeper into a little bit about how that impacts Parks and Rec and our future events, I'll turn it over to Ashley, who can get into some of the recommended items, recommended actions on the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. As Christian said, obviously we're monitoring very closely how the effects of the decisions that we make about our Parks and Recreation facilities, what those effects might have on our community. And obviously with the new information out today, we're going to be looking at areas where we feel like we've got some additional adjustments that can be made, like our skate park or pump track, things like that. But the most important thing we want to talk about today is the 4th of July event. As the manager said, it's very, very popular event in our community. We typically have at least 15,000 people joining us in Tom Brown Park. with another who knows how many thousands parked on sides of the roads and in parking lots around the park to be able to watch the fireworks. We've obviously, looked at what other cities are doing, other communities are doing as well. We're not the only ones recommending that this event be canceled. Throughout the state, we've got cities like Tampa, Orlando, Kissimmee, Lakeland, Sarasota, Panama City, Daytona Beach, and many others that have already canceled their events. It's obviously not what our preference would be, but given the circumstances and the nature of the event itself, with all the guidance that's in place and the best practices, our recommendation today to you is that, unfortunately, we cancel that event for this year. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about that.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
And, this is for Ashley or for whoever. We have received comments about the 4th of July celebrations at in other places like Summerbrook and Southwood. Is that something that and I know that Chief Gaines is the one that I guess they request permission from. Is there anything that we can say to them based on what we're doing, what the recommendation would be for them to do as well?
I'll take that, Mayor Pro Tem. In fact, Ashley can nod her head. Southwood, I believe, has indicated that they are also canceling their event. So we know that's a major event in our community, and that's at their deciding. They have elected to do that. There are other neighborhood fireworks events that are not part of the city's efforts, of course, but do need permits from our Tallahassee Fire Department. Those are still pending. We've not taken action. We've not asked you to weigh in on that tonight. You can, of course, if you wish to give us direction. I think it may be productive to allow them to share how they want to carry out those events in a safe way, not just from a fire safety point of view, but from a social distancing and a COVID-19 point of view. So we have not asked for that direction. Certainly welcome to take it, but right now we're just recommending that you give us direction to cancel the Celebrate America event. And again, we have learned that the Southwood event is also canceled.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I agree with the canceling of the fireworks display. The last thing we need is to have a lot of people out there in an unsafe environment. So I support the decision to cancel the 4th of July celebration.
Agree. Any other comments? First of all, Mr. Clerk, I'm sorry. Mr. Goad, continue on with the presentation. I'm sorry about that.
No, Mr. Mayor, before you leave this topic, I want to make sure Ashley has an opportunity to share with what we're working on. She mentioned it briefly in terms of we're continuing to explore ways to re-engage our community with recreation, those things that we believe can be safely done, individually performed, not in large crowds. And so we're moving forward on some of those elements. I think it'd be good to talk about at this point, including our approach with ball fields. You'll recall about a month ago, we announced we canceled our summer camps and we canceled the organized sports like our baseball leagues. But Ashley and her team have been working with others as it relates to the use of the ball fields. It might be an appropriate time at this to share that too, sir.
Of course.
Thank you, Manager. Yes, we've opened our ball fields back up with the exception of the Meadows Soccer Complex. That complex does remain closed, but all of our other ball fields are open for use by groups of 10 or less. We have made the decision previously, at the same time we made our decision about camps, that we would not have any organized leagues, summer leagues for either adults or youth. We're obviously looking towards the fall and looking at options and opportunities as we continue to move forward. But we won't have any of those activities this summer. We are looking at, in addition to the skate park and the pump track, we've got a few other facilities that we also think we can open that people will be able to recreate responsibly in. They'll be able to keep their social distancing. And again, they're more individual-based activities as opposed to the team sports that put you in such close proximity. We know that the folks that want to use our athletics fields can do practices and drills and things like that in a safe manner. It's the game situations that obviously present the biggest challenges in terms of the social distancing and in terms of the opportunities for people to have multiple people touching the same objects and things like that. So we want to continue to work with the folks that are user groups to try to figure out how we can do those things safely and in the best manner possible.
Ashley, I want you to know that I personally appreciate everything and anything that you have been doing through Parks and Recreation. These are difficult times, not just with COVID-19. I understand people are frustrated because we've all been at home. I know that health, safety, and welfare is first and foremost on your mind to protect not only the citizens, but also our employees. Sometimes you have to make difficult decisions, and we don't necessarily open up quite as quickly as everyone else would like for us to do. I want you to know that I support your decisions. You're doing a fantastic job. More importantly, I cannot tell you how impressed I am with your professionalism with dealing with people that are frustrated. And I have always known you to be the utmost professional, and you're doing a great job. Thank you. Whether it's, our aquatic sports, our ball fields, whatever it is. Now, I will tell you that I was a little dismayed that you did not tell me how difficult the gun range loop was on a mountain bike when I tried to do it the other day and nearly went over the handlebars and basically decided to walk my bike down to the bottom of it instead of going through the rest of it. I wasn't quite prepared for that, but it's also great to see that we have these amazing trails all over Tallahassee and Leon County for that much. But Ashley, I wanted you to hear from me, especially on the record. Parks and Recreation, we're nationally recognized for having some of the best. And our dedicated men and women that work for Parks and Rec are doing a fantastic job, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Mayor,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I very much appreciate y'all's support. And I have to say our staff, it's our staff, and they're doing a phenomenal job. Every single one of them every day. We have a tremendous staff, and I really need to give them that credit. Thank you, though.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Pro Tem.
I just want to know, is there any video footage that we can gain access to of you and your bike in the trail?
It is not pretty, but I am sure that if you ask Tommy and Henry, they will give you a full account of their father trying to go down the trail. They were giggling the entire time. They thought it was pretty fun. Sometimes I forget my age and I try to act a little younger than I am. And this was one of those cases on the bike. So nonetheless,
okay. You'll learn. You'll learn.
It's a good family story that will live in lore for a long time. That is for sure.
Well, great. I wanted to also piggyback on your compliments to Ashley and her staff. We've worked together a very long time because my kids played baseball all the way up through, and I even stayed after they left. And Ashley and I had a relationship prior to me coming to the commission. And I also wanted to mention that we did get some comments from parents, and I'm glad that our city manager is on top of that and was able to provide some information. It may not be what they wanted to hear, but we did receive their comments, and I want them to know that. And so this is where we are. So I thank you all for addressing it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Any comments at this point? Commissioner Matlow, yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the fireworks displays and just make sure I'm clear. We're completely canceling the Tom Brown Park displays with this vote, but any neighborhood association that wants to come up with some way to social distance and still do a display, they can still work through that through normal channels. Is that correct?
Well, let me jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Manager, that yes, sir, I think you've identified it appropriately, that at this point, obviously, we'll continue to monitor COVID-19 in our community. And I've got a follow-up question in regards, Mr. Manager, to the governor's announcements today with phase 2. But while we have made a decision, Commissioner Matlow, you're correct, to cancel the city event, as of right now, we have not rendered a decision based on the Clarn Neighborhood Association or the Summerbrook Association. I am sure that part of the permitting process, if we decide to get that far, to not only have the fireworks, but what is your plan in place for, public safety and for social distancing as well, which would be responsible for us. But correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Manager, there is no decision before us today to force a private homeowner association to cancel their fireworks show, although we have seen that at least one in our community has decided to do so.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, you've described that well.
Okay. Commissioner Matlow, does that answer your questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you.
I think the issue is whether or not the fire chief would issue a permit for the fireworks. Am I correct, City Manager?
Yes, sir. That is the question. So those fireworks displays would require a permit from our fire department. We've not made a decision not to do that at this point. Certainly, I don't think it's out of the question that we would inquire about the measures they would take to make sure from a social distancing point of view and reasonable precautions against the virus, you just get some comfort level there as well. But ultimately, it would be the issuance of a permit from our Tallahassee Fire Department that would be required. And we've not made that decision not to do that. And we're not asking you to provide that direction tonight.
Okay. Well, I would
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I would suggest that we work with those neighborhoods. It has been a long tradition in each of those neighborhoods. I know I've attended the Summerbrook event, and it's a very nice event. And I'm sure that if we work with them and impress upon them the importance of adhering to the CDC guidelines, that, you know, I think it should be something we should consider, Mr. Mayor.
Great point. Great point. Yes. Commissioner Bryant, would you like to chime in as well? We've heard from our other colleagues.
Sure. Let me just say that I'm in agreement, but I think the plan, not just to say that we're in compliance, we need to have something very concrete. And I'm sure that they will work with our staff to create concrete criteria for which they will be responsible for compliance. But I'm certainly in favor of receiving that information such that we can move forward with the process.
Good point. Good point. Thanks for chiming in. Mr. Manger, I'll turn it back over to you to wrap up the presentation.
Mr. Mayor, that concludes our information, and we recommend that you adopt option 1, which is to accept the update, and option 2, to direct staff to cancel the Celebrate American July 4th event and implement alternative celebration activities.
Okay, before we entertain a motion, I just want to say also that I had the opportunity, you know, the governor came out with his announcement of phase 2 reopening today, and I had an opportunity to check in with both CEOs of both hospitals, as we do when these announcements come out. Both of them were cautiously optimistic based upon our local numbers and what their infectious disease experts are saying, that we can move forward. Of course, we should always be vigilant with our message to wear masks, social distance. It is not a time for us to become relaxed as a society. We need to, with everything that's going on in our community, in the United States and in the world, we need to make sure that we stay on message so that we can move our community forward. With that, I'll entertain a motion for staff's recommendation.
Mr. Mayor, before we do that, I saw Jim wave his hand about comments. I mentioned some of them, but.
I'm sorry.
That's correct.
And thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Just exactly as Commissioner Williams-Cox mentioned, the Mayor Pro Tem already commented that we did have a couple of citizens respond, but I just wanted to make sure the record reflects we received 2 comments on this item, both relating to what you've discussed with ball fields and youth team sports, both wanting opportunities for children to get outside. So that's
Great.
all we had. Thank you.
Great, great. Madam Pro Tem, would you like to make a motion?
Move acceptance of staff recommendation.
Excellent. It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. 11.02, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. This item seeks your approval and acceptance of a grant from the Department of Juvenile Justice in the amount of $184,500 and to authorize the expenditure of the funds for the Palmer Monroe Teen Center. The Palmer Monroe Teen Center has hosted the Community Connections Restorative Justice Program since 2010. I think you're somewhat familiar with it, but I thought this was a good opportunity to highlight the good work of the program. And I would like to ask, with your indulgence, Ashley, just to give us a little overview. This grant has been instrumental in funding the program. And again, it's been around for almost 10 years now, doing good work in our community.
Excellent. Ms. Edwards?
Thank you, Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor. The Community Connections program at the Teen Center is a highly successful program. It's a restorative justice program that focuses on nonviolent communication techniques. It provides a place where a culture of safety is intentionally created, where people experience being heard even in conflict, and where conflict is used to connect people rather than to incite further conflict or harm or any types of violence. It serves kids aged 13 to 17 each year, and we're able to serve about 50 of them per year in that program. The kids are referred to the program by the state's attorney's office after an arrest for court-ordered diversion or as a condition of probation through the judicial process, or they can be referred by their school or just by community members. The process itself integrates the following components. It's got a restorative justice conferences and conference agreements. It has nonviolent communication classes and mentors. We do case management and nonviolent communication empathy practice and processes. And we also have the kids do community service. Now, typically this program meets 3 times a week, twice for the classes on the communication skills and then once for case management. However, obviously right now, in the situation that we're in, we're trying to do all that virtually, and our staff has done a tremendous job adapting and changing the program while still trying to be highly effective with that, and they've done a great job. The core tenet of the program, though, is it functions around a power-sharing model of relationship where participants are bound by agreements they have made, and needs and feelings of all the participants can be shared and considered relevant. Safety, respect, consistency, accountability, and care are a big part of encouraging the teens to recognize that their voices and actions matter and to make better choices about expression and action. Now, just a few numbers very briefly, that since 2014, 202 youth have graduated from the program. Very impressive is the recidivism rate, 12%. That is an unheard of recidivism number in the arena of juvenile justice programs, and I'm very proud of that number and our staff. And another really neat statistic is that over 32% of the graduates return to volunteer in the program. And we also have more than 100 community volunteers that help us with this process, sit in circles and groups with those kids, and many of those volunteers have volunteered for multiple years with us. So it's an exciting program. This grant goes a long way towards helping provide the bulk of the funding for that program, and we appreciate your approval of accepting that grant again. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, do we have any comments on this item?
Do not.
Thank you. Let me start by saying I am very excited about the grant that we have received. Ashley, you are correct. This is a shining program that we run. It works. I am a huge fan of the juvenile justice, restorative justice program that we have. And, you know, in the future, we need to think about how we can bolster it even further moving forward. Turn it over to any comments or questions or motions from my colleagues.
Mr. Mayor.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
I would also like to pile on again about this program. I met with some of the individuals who are working this program, and I too agree that hopefully we can find some way to expand it, because I know there's an interest in taking it into the school system as well. So hopefully in the future we'll be able to see that happen. And I also wanted to mention on the goals that are listed here on our agenda, I believe there are some other goals that we're accomplishing by this. I think I see the chief nodding over there, so I'm sure it hits public safety and quality of life, because as you said, this sets the kids on a better path, and it does have an impact on poverty, a positive impact on poverty. So I think that there are two additional goals that we're hitting with this program, and I want us to get every bit of credit that we can get for reaching our goals. So consider that. And I'll stop and let someone else say something.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Matlow, yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to echo some of those comments. I too had the opportunity to sit in on a session a couple years ago, and it's just fantastic. And since then, a young woman who had actually gone through the program came to our office hours and was telling us about it. I'm interested in seeing where they want to go from here. I think it would be beneficial if we maybe just gave them an opportunity to come do a presentation for the commission, tell us what they're doing, show us what they're doing, invite some of the people who have come through the program, and see what their plans are for the future.
Excellent, excellent. Any other comments? All right, the Mayor Pro Tem moves staff recommendation of acceptance of the grant. It's seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 5-0. We are on. Commissioner Bryant, were you trying to speak and I accidentally missed you?
No, I was about to give the motion, but we're there.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Okay, we are on number 11.03, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In late 2019, you'll recall I established the Office of Diversity and Inclusion as a new city department, and this item was originally scheduled to be an update, about a mid-year update on the progress of that office, the things that they're working on, the overall internal-facing initiatives and external-facing initiatives. Clearly, we're continuing to meet virtually, but I did not want to miss the opportunity. Angela Hindreth, our director of the department, she's been doing good work. Her team's been doing good work, and I wanted the opportunity for her to share that good work with you. So Angela's going to give you a thorough presentation. It's going to include the current status of where we find ourselves with our workforce, as well as efforts underway to reinstate a diversity discussion this fall. And you'll recall a couple months ago, there was a lot of interest expressed in a parade in our Martin Luther King Jr. holiday in January. So all of these things have been in the works, and I want Angela to be able to share those good works with you and answer your questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Angela.
Excellent. Angela, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, appointed officials. It is indeed my pleasure to be here with you today to present you with an update on all of the initiatives that the Office of Diversity and Inclusion has been working on. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce the phenomenal team of diversity and inclusion to you. We have Ms. Andrea Griffin, who is a manager in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, Mr. Sam Watkins, Tremaine Hughes, Mary Knight, Toya Owens, Kathleen Wright, Poonam Bhatta, James McKinney, Daniel Carlson, and Ada Dees. And these individuals are the catalyst behind all that we're doing to ensure that the city is a phenomenal, diverse, and inclusive organization. So as you know, the mission of the City of Tallahassee is to be the national leader in the delivery of public service. And in order for that to happen, we have to ensure that the workforce is a clear reflection of the community that we serve. So how do we do that? I think that as an organization, we do that in 3 ways. We continue to promote diversity and inclusion in our workforce. We want to make sure that we're monitoring the workforce on a continuous basis using data and analytics. And we're also going to work with our departments, or continue to work with the departments, to ensure that we are recruiting a diverse workforce, as well as growing and promoting our own employees within the organization. In 2019, as the city manager said, he initiated a workforce staffing report so that we can take a look at our departments and see exactly where we stand as it relates to race and gender in our various EEO categories or positions. And what we found is that in some departments, we're doing well. And in others, we have opportunities for improvement. We actually met with all of the department directors. talk with them about where they are currently in their staffing levels. And we've come up with plans of actions on how we can close the gap or improve what we look like as it relates to diversity. If we take a look at the demographics in the city as well as in our employees, we can see that we're really not that far off from this workforce reflecting the community. When we take a look at gender, again, we can see that when it comes to gender, we're a little off. And by off, I mean we're 76% male in the workforce. I'm sorry, 76% male in the workforce and 40% female in our workforce. And that's because many of our departments are male dominated. We have the fire department, police department, we have underground utilities, electric, those tend to be male dominated industries. But because they're male dominated doesn't mean that we can't change what this breakdown looks like. So we're working with our departments to ensure that we're coming up with some innovative ways to change the demographics as it relates to race and gender. In fact, when we take a look at our own leadership, we can see that we've done a great job of modeling what we expect to see in the workplace. Again, the race and gender of the leadership team closely matches what we're seeing in the community. Again, opportunities for improvement, but we are well on our way to doing just that. So let's take a look at the strategic goals that the city has in place and how the Office of Diversity and Inclusion is working to achieve these goals. The first goal we have here is outreach. Our goal here is to increase partnership with city departments, and we're going to develop some unique ways to get relationships with local organizations such as Leon County schools, local colleges and universities, vocational facilities. If we increase our recruitment pool, then we're sure to increase the number of diverse candidates that we have in the city. We're going to kind of come up with some ways to introduce young ladies and women to some non-traditional jobs. One of the things that we're working on producing right now, and this is with Andrea and Toya on their team, we're creating a calendar that's going to be called OWN, in her own words, One Woman's Narrative, where we're going to celebrate and showcase women employees in their respective roles. We're going to develop a leadership conference for young girls so that they can, again, see what's available, so we can change those numbers when it comes to gender in the workplace from the 76% and bring it down so that it more closely represents the actual community. And then we're going to take a look at creating some network mixers with the universities, because as you know, it's all about relationship. And if we can develop relationships with the universities and with the schools, then we're going to increase the city's profile and work to get more of a diverse applicant pool here at the city. Next slide. When it comes to building sustained leadership, the city is committed to doing just that. We already have several stellar programs in place. The first one is the NPSI program, or the New Public Servant Initiative program. This program is a 9-month training program where we are working with employees who have been selected by their directors to come in and learn more about the organization, get some additional skills, network with the leadership, and learn how to create projects so that they are preparing themselves for future opportunities that we know will be coming in the organization. We're also going to utilize the Certified Public Managers program. And this is a nationally recognized training and development program that will, again, give those employees who have been selected in our succession planning program another level of skills, so that when the opportunities arise for them to move into new positions, they'll be ready to do that. And we're also going to ensure that every employee receives diversity and inclusion training. As I said earlier, it's all about relationships. And when people don't get along, or when people don't know each other, they tend to create barriers which can truly interfere with how we interact, one as an organization, but also how we deal with our customers. So the diversity and inclusion training is going to ensure that every employee has a good understanding of diversity and inclusion and recognize the value of having an organization that is welcoming and open to all. So when we take a look at our new hire demographics, one of the things we want to make sure of is that, again, I'm looking at the chart here, and we see that we have 66% of our new hires as of May 15th was 66%. 27% were Black. Well, we know that we're going to have to make more of an effort to bring in more minority candidates if we're going to ensure that this workforce looks like the community, because our community is browning every day. And if we don't make a concerted effort to bring in more minority candidates, then we're going to find ourselves with an organization that is predominantly white, which doesn't reflect the community that we're serving. And here's the good news, is that we have a talent development program that we can actually use to grow and to mentor up-and-coming employees so that when we have openings, we can move them in there. When we take a look at our talent development program, right now, again, we see that it closely resembles the community that we serve. But again, we know that this community is changing, so we have to work even harder to ensure that we're getting more minority candidates in these programs so that when the openings come up, we'll have opportunities to replace those who are leaving with more minority candidates. When we take a look at the drop information, and this is, again, who's going to be retiring in the next 3 to 5 years, we see that 533 employees are eligible for drop, and we currently have 206 employees who are in drop. Again, another opportunity for us to take advantage of the talent development programs that we have, the MPSI, the CPM, to identify qualified minority candidates and move them into positions that are becoming available in the next 3 to 5 years, as well as utilizing new employees who are coming in so that we can fill these positions with qualified minority candidates. And when we take a look at the drop information, what we see here is that around 63% of the individuals who are leaving will be white. That means that we're going to have a lot of opportunities here to shift the look of this organization, because if we've got 63% of our population leaving who are white, then that creates more opportunities for us to bring in more minority candidates so that, again, this organization is reflecting the community that we serve. When it comes to creating a work environment that promotes inclusion and diversity, we're going to continue to promote and support the policies that we already have in place. That's our reasonable accommodation policy. That's going to be working with the disabled communities to bring in more disabled candidates for this organization. We're going to continue with our anti-harassment policy that basically says that everyone who works here at the City of Tallahassee or who does business with us will be invited into an environment that promotes diversity, that promotes a work environment that is free from any type of harassment or discrimination. And the other initiative that we're excited about is the community-based diversity and inclusive initiatives. And we're excited because we've gotten, this is initiatives that the commission has been talking about for almost a year now. And we're excited about being able to bring these initiatives forward. This is something we could not do without the support of the commission, so we're thankful for that. And one of the things that the city manager mentioned earlier is that the Diversity and Inclusion Summit is coming back. This is something that we've done in the past and have not done for the past 2 years. But in October, we will be bringing the event back. Again, it'll be workshops focusing on diversity and inclusion and issues in the community that are important to our residents. We're excited about bringing on the first ever Martin Luther King Day parade, followed by a festival. And we're working with the Department of Parks and Recreation to pull this together and make this a success. And we're also going to bring on some quarterly community conversations. And these conversations will be based on the event that happened in October. Our goal here is to ensure that the conversation doesn't stop once the summit is over. We're looking at community issues, community solutions. So we're offering quarterly conversations throughout the community where folks can get together and talk about issues that are important to them and also come up with some solutions. Then we can ensure that we are keeping diversity and inclusion at the forefront of our minds in the organization as well as in the community. A community that connects is a community that works well together, and we're excited about all of these initiatives. So when it comes to accomplishing the city's mission of being the national leader in the delivery of public service, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion will continue to work to support that goal, that mission, by monitoring the workforce to ensure that we're representing the entire community that we serve. We're going to ensure that we're working with every department to bring on a highly capable and diverse workforce. We're going to continue with our programs of NPSI, CPM, and diversity training to build a sustained and committed and diverse leadership so that we can have an inclusive workforce. And we're going to continue to build a work environment that promotes inclusion and acceptance with all of our employees. I'm available for any questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that report. Certainly do appreciate it, Angela. Let's open it up for any discussion, any questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Pro Tem, and then Commissioner Bryant.
I am smiling from ear to ear because I love everything that I just heard, the data to back it up, and I believe the commitment is there. I'm hearing good things about what we're doing, and I like the internal and external facing opportunities. I think that this is what our city needs, and I am pleased that we are well on our way. Angela, to you and your staff, you all are doing a phenomenal job, and it shows in what you just showed us. My question is, will this be available for public consumption on our website?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Because our community needs to know what we're doing, so that they understand that they are a priority to all of us, and that we want our organization to look like our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bryant, before I recognize you, let me ask the clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
Mayor, we did receive 2 comments on this item, but I believe they were submitted prior to adding item 11.10, which is a TPD update, and I believe they relate better to that item. For the record, we'll make sure they're attached where they were submitted, but I'll mention them again when we get to 11.1.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bryant.
Yes, let me also commend Angela and her team for the document that they have put together for us today. I definitely would like a copy of the PowerPoint that you provided. Let me also ask, and maybe this will come later, but are you responsible for training at the police for law enforcement? Okay, so, okay. All right, well, that answers that question. All right, then let me also just add this, and I think we're at a great beginning, but I think it's going to be important that we look at training and opportunities for our current employees that focuses on the culture in which we currently operate, because inclusion goes beyond gender, obviously you know that, and race. I think that we really do need to pay a special attention to not only who we bring in, but people that are currently working in the workforce. How do we create the culture that we want for sustainability, as well as promotional opportunities? And I'll just put the 3 dots behind that because I know you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the report that you provided today.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson.
Well, I too certainly would congratulate Angela on the job that they have done. I certainly applaud the city manager for his vision in creating this department and putting the right individuals in place to achieve the mission that has been set out. Certainly we want an organization that reflects the community in every aspect. And so, Angela, again, congratulations to you all. I mean, I think your staff certainly reflects the community in every respect. And so that's what we want to see eventually for our entire city, even in those areas that are male dominated. You know, when I was at Lively, we were trying to encourage young ladies to go into some of those careers. And so maybe in partnership with them, we can get some individuals who typically don't go into construction and electricity and those types of trades, get them interested in those areas as well to be potential employees for the city. But again, congratulations, Angela, on all the good work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Excellent. Commissioner Matlow, any comments?
Video went away. Okay. First off, thank you, and thank you, Angela. That was fantastic. It was straight to the point. We know exactly where we are. We know exactly where we want to get, and really laid out how we can get there and what's opening up for the draft program. So fantastic. Excited about the work and looking forward to moving forward.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem makes a motion for staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Bryant. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Angela, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. City Manager, 11.04.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, I need to update the record on this item. It reflects a date range of 2020, 2028. I need to update that for the record to reflect 2020 to 2029. We will get that update online, and I will ask that in the recommended action, it be reworded to read, approve the 2020 to 2029 Transit Development Plan minor update.
Okay. So no.
Thank you, sir. This is the Transit Development Plan, which is a 10-year roadmap. It is the overall guiding plan for Star Metro. Most specifically, it establishes the transit service goals for the next 5 years, and it outlines the planning and operational and facility priorities over a 10-year period. This update is required in order for Star Metro to receive annual block grant funding from the Florida Department of Transportation. An executive summary is attached to your agenda material. And next year, Star Metro will be conducting and submitting their transit development major update. So every other year, we do the major update, which is required every 5 years. We recommend that you approve this transit development plan minor update. And Angela Baldwin, our Star Metro director, is here to answer any questions you might have.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, first of all, Angela, do you have anything that you'd like to add or just be available for question? Okay, thank you. I read your lips. I saw you. Just available for questions. Okay. Mr. Clerk, do we have any comments on this item?
No, sir.
Excellent. Let's turn it over for commission discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to just point out that we just celebrated the 64th observance of the Tallahassee bus boycott that involved, at that time, it wasn't called Star Metro, but you know, it was the bus system. And so how fitting that we are now here with an African-American female at the helm. And once upon a time, she couldn't sit on the bus up front, and now she is the director of the bus. Progress has been made. And she and her team are doing a fantastic job, and we've seen some of that. We've seen them singing for the folks on the bus. We've seen them passing out masks. We've seen them doing quite a few things. And so I just want to say thank you, Madam Director, for what you're doing with your staff to make our city even better. And so I would like to move the acceptance of this report.
It's been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Do we have any other comment? Ms. Baldwin, I would like to also chime in and say, you know, not only are you doing an amazing job, and I truly thank all the men and women that work for Star Metro, but let us not forget that during COVID-19 and these interesting times that we live in with social distancing, you know, all of our mass transit folks are on the front line and they are being exposed as well. But yet they show up to work every day to make sure that the mass transit system operates, that it's efficient, and that it meets the needs of our community. And I cannot tell you and your team and your entire department how much we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
I'm sorry. Was that Commissioner Matlow? No. Okay. Moving on, there is a motion on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Passes unanimously 5-0. 11.05, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next couple of items also involve Star Metro. Specifically, item 1105 seeks your approval of Resolution 20-R-21 and to approve the request to accept FTA CARES Act Section 5311 funds totaling $701,000, $701,512. These funds can be used for operating requirements of Star Metro. As you might imagine, they are very much needed as our operations have been impacted by COVID. There is there is a local match required, and it will be used to support our operating expenses over the next 3 years as needed. We recommend your approval of this item. And again, our director, Angela Baldwin, is here for this item.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item?
Mayor, we do not have speakers.
Excellent. Let the record reflect that Ms. Baldwin is bringing it home for Star Metro and the City of Tallahassee, and we certainly do appreciate that. Commissioner Bryant, I see you. Do you have comments?
Yes, move staff recommendation.
Second.
Properly moved by Commissioner Bryant. Commissioner Richardson, I see you. Do you have comments after your second on this motion?
No.
Excellent. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Passes unanimously 5-0. 11.06, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. Again, this item involves Star Metro. I guess if we were measuring Ms. Baldwin's performance and return on investment, she'd be doing very well today.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Well, this one, we're seeking your approval to apply for, accept, and expend an FTA grant titled Helping Obtain Prosperity for Everyone, or HOPE program. The funding would be in the amount of $500,000. If awarded, we're seeking that you authorize me or my designee to execute all the documents associated with it. The grant would be allocated for a planning and route optimization study, financial analysis, and technology upgrades with the inclusion of the new South City Transit Center we've talked about so much that would be on Orange Avenue in Meridian in that proximity. We're very much looking forward to that. So if we receive this grant, it will go a long way toward that project. We recommend your approval of option 1.
Wonderful. Mr. Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item?
There are no speakers on this item.
Move approval of option 1, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Richardson moves the staff recommendation, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say that
Yes,
I'm
sir.
certainly glad to see that we're moving forward with this project. This was one of my priorities as a member of Sales Tax Committee. And so this will be funded out of the proceeds, and it is one of our priority projects, as a matter of fact. So glad to see that we're moving forward with this, Angela. Look forward to it.
Sir. Thank you. Without further ado, any other comments? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. We are on item number 11.07. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item involves our airport, the Tallahassee International Airport. It seeks your approval of the selection committee, staff selection committee ranking for the passenger loading bridge replacement project for the airport, and seeks your authorization to designate me or my designee to negotiate and enter into an agreement with Aero Bridge Works Incorporated, which is the highest ranked firm in the RFP process. In the event that a contract cannot be successfully negotiated, we seek your authorization to be able to negotiate with the next highest ranked firm. David Pollard, our director of our airport, is here to provide additional information if you need it. We recommend your approval of option 1.
Excellent. Mr. Clark, do we have any comments on this item?
Sir, no comments.
Thank you. Commissioners, any motions or comments?
Move acceptance.
Properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. We are on item number 11.8, and 11.9 has been rolled into 11.8. Correct, Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir, that is correct. They dealt with the same subject, and we received word from the Florida Department of Transportation. Their preference was to have one resolution. This seeks your approval of a resolution. Therefore, we combined them into this item for your consideration.
Excellent. Mr. Manager, carry forward.
Yes, sir. We are seeking your approval to adopt Resolution 20-R-22 and authorize myself or my designee to reprogram and accept and execute dollars from the Florida Department of Transportation. They would be used for our air cargo apron project. I believe that is a $500,000 effort. I'm going to look to David Pollard. I do not have that in my notes. Is that correct, Mr. Pollard?
No, sir. Actually, it's over $3.2 million. And matched locally, it actually becomes over $6 million project that we would be using to expand the cargo apron and expand our overall profile and ability to go after more freight, logistics, and distribution here at Tallahassee.
Excellent. I'm glad I asked. $3.2 million, Mayor and Commissioners. We recommend your approval of option 1.
Excellent.
Move approval, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Mr. Clerk, Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No comment on items where we're receiving $3.2 million. People seem to be happy with that.
Second motion.
Commissioner Richardson enthusiastically makes the motion for staff recommendation, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Before we move off of transportation relation issues under this item, Mr. Clerk, I want to make sure that it is noted in the record that the motion for 11.04 did include and reflect the date change that the city manager did propose. Any questions on that, Mr. Clerk?
No, sir. No questions. We have made note of that, and the record will reflect it.
Excellent. Wonderful. Okay, we are on number 11.10, the Tallahassee Police Department update. I will turn it over to the manager, turn it over to the police chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, we've had a very eventful string of days, very unfortunate events around our country, a lot of consternation about where we find ourselves, and I thought it was appropriate to provide you an update. Specifically, you'll recall, and I believe it was Sunday. The days have run together at this point. Our police chief, our state attorney, and our sheriff met with members of our community to discuss their concerns, thoughts they had, and in particular, there was some discussion about moving forward with the creation of a new app or app-like function that may make our citizens feel more comfortable, that could be activated with voice command, that would record the interaction with TPD or other law enforcement for that matter, and make it available to potentially supervisory staff. I wanted to give you an update on that. In a moment, I'm going to ask our IT director, Tim Davis, to do that because they would take the lead in that regard. There was also discussion about Citizen Review Board, which is very similar to an advisory committee in some jurisdictions. I would like the Chief Revel, along with DC Deputy Chief Smith, to give an update on where they are with the advisory committee that the chief has been working to establish, and have a discussion about the creation of a Citizens Review Board. Those are very contemporary topics that are being discussed today, and I thought this was a good opportunity to provide those updates. So with that, I'm going to ask our Director of Technology and Innovation, Tim Davis, to give us an update about how we would approach developing new technology, kind of where we are, making sure we understand the scope and the requirements.
Thank you, City Manager. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioner, and appointed officials. The approach that we will take from technology and innovation is in the basic software analysis and development cycle. First off, we initially want to sit down with the user groups and start talking with the police department and make sure that we've got a good understanding of the requirements, look at our existing applications and see if there's anything that we can do in terms of enhancements, go through the process of researching the market, look at what vendors that we have out there, what applications may fit with similar functionalities. Based on the response that we've gotten from the user groups, and make sure that we understand the business process impacts as well. We'll then do a feasibility study and determine if this is something that we can build in-house or something that we have to go out and procure. And that would be the approach that we would take to ensure that we meet the requirements that are asked for in this request.
And let me add to that, and Tim, I appreciate those comments. We certainly understand the urgency of this request. As each of you realize, these kinds of new functions can take a long time. We certainly want to do this as fast as possible. I would like to bring you an update, at least in terms of what we can find out and what kind of progress that we can make at your next meeting, which is scheduled for June 17th. Tim and his team can maybe possibly identify functionality that already exists, or if we have to develop it in-house. And I certainly do not want to delay this effort. And with your support, I'd like to bring you back as much information as possible and direction at your next meeting in terms of our progress.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, and Mr. Manager, you've addressed it, but certainly we want to expedite this process as quickly as possible. That was one of the things that the young people talked about, that we could control and certainly explore. And so I'd just like to see us expedite this as quickly as possible, realizing that there are certain steps that we have to go through, and we might want to reach out to them after this meeting and let them know that we have given the city manager the authority to move forward with this and talk about some specific timelines that we hope to achieve, so they can feel comfortable that we have heard them and that we're moving forward with this project.
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, ma'am.
I concur, but I would also like to say that, what Mr. Davis just mentioned is how I've spent my past 30 years. And the steps that he just provided are indeed the software lifecycle steps. So I don't want anyone to think that he's making this up, but you can Google it. This is indeed how it happens. You can't flip a switch and things happen. You can do it, but it's going to be very costly, and it's not going to be what is needed. So it is going to be very important that the users, the folks who propose it, the individuals who propose it, got to sit down and give requirements. We cannot assume that we know exactly what they're saying, because it's easy to say we need an app to be able to voice activate. Okay, so, but there are some requirements that need to be made so that they can hit the mark and see what's available out there. So I just wanted to come on and say that we do want to expedite it, but we do want to make sure that it's effective and it is what the user asked for, because many times we go off and think we know what the user wanted, and it's not what they wanted. So the user, or they need to identify who is going to be their point of where you get information from, to be able to gather that information and make sure that you have the requirements to be able to even go look at the market and see what's available out there, or if you have to build it in-house. I hope you can find it in the market, because if you have to build it in-house, it's going, I just know, take a while. So hopefully there's something in the market that we'll be able to purchase off the shelf, as we call it, COTS, commercial off the shelf, and be able to adapt quickly.
Great comments. Thank you. Mr. Davis, thank you for everything that you're doing. Certainly do appreciate it. Keep up the great work.
Commissioner Bryant trying to get your attention.
Oh, Commissioner Bryant, I am sorry. Please, you're recognized.
Unmute.
There we go. Thank you. And on the 17th, because everything that's been said so far is so appropriate, but I want to point out that on the 17th, if we can at least have some kind of definitive timeline for either one of those avenues, because the more people know up front, all of us, that it's going to take 2 years, 1 year, 2 days, we set the expectations for what it is that can happen. So I think that is a critical component of how we communicate this project. And I'm in total support of it, but I want to make sure that we define the parameters with the input of those who have made the request. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir, Mr. Richardson. Commissioner.
A question for either the city manager or Mr. Davis, or maybe even the chief. With the current system that we have, the current body cams, what is the procedure for those cameras being activated, and why would it not be feasible to have them run continuously and not be turned up? I've heard that issue brought up in this conversation.
Might check on that.
Commissioner, let me start that answer. It is a combined answer. I know Mr. Davis probably can answer it best from a storage and technology point of view, but Chief, it probably would be good to give an overview of how we initiate those body cameras and how that was ultimately determined, and then get Tim to share the thoughts about storing or recording all the time.
Right. I mean, our body cameras have battery packs. Those battery packs are on all the time, but they're not recording constantly. So when the officer gets out of the car for a call, they tap. It's a very large button, so it's like you're going to miss it. They tap that button, and the recording actually backs up 30 seconds, but there's not audio for that 30 seconds, and then that kicks on. But I will say that in talking to young leaders in the conversation that we had, they were not interested in turning on our body cameras. They believe, like we all do, that in those situations they should already be on. They wanted their phones to record. They wanted recording of it. And that's one of the questions I asked for clarification as well. They were very clear that they wanted their phones to come on and to begin recording, obviously without touching them, because they didn't want to be reaching for the phone, or manipulating the phone. And I know I'm probably getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I know the ACLU has an app out there that does pretty much the same kind of thing, but there's a lot of manipulation of the phone that has to occur with that, which is, again, not what they're looking for here. So I'm excited about meeting with the young leaders again and exploring this with Mr. Davis and Mr. Van Riper, and here at the police department, and seeing what we can do to make this work. And I know the sheriff is completely on board with doing this as well.
Okay.
Commissioner Richardson, you have any questions?
No.
Okay. All right. We're getting some feedback, so if you can mute your mics until we have the opportunity to speak, that'd be great. Mr. Manager, I'll turn it back over to you for the presentation. I think we now go to the police chief.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. The next piece of this, we wanted to talk about the conversation that's been had over the last number of days, and one that has occurred for some time now, is to make sure we get outside viewpoints in our police department to engender the trust of the public in knowing that there are members of our public that participate in development of policy, review of policy, potential review of events. And as you know, Chief Revel had been working on that, has been working on that in advisory, forming an advisory committee. I think it'd be helpful to hear what he is working on, and then just cue a conversation for you and your colleagues about a citizen review board. I think there's some just nomenclature in there. Some of the words run together. There are models around the state of Florida for citizen review boards. They are not all the same, but somewhat similar. And I do believe any models that we should look at should come from the state of Florida, because obviously they have to comport with our state rules and laws. So the chief is joined by Deputy Chief Smith, who has been on point for the advisory committee, and I'm going to ask them to kind of tag team an overview and kick off this conversation.
Thank you, City Manager, Mayor, and Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, city officials. I definitely want to take the opportunity first to thank you for the support that you have all given us. It means the world to me. It means the world to our force. And just to know that you have all been there, certainly without exception, Deputy City Manager Barber has been there, each and every day, and she and I talk multiple times every day. But I just wanted to say thank you. It does mean the world to us to know that we have your support. I do want to touch real quickly, if I may, on just the protest. Those have been largely peaceful since the beginning. And I'm just extremely proud of our community and our officers who are working hand in hand, side by side, to protect that right to voice, concerns and complaints and criticisms. And so we have gotten many, many complaints from protesters in the crowds walking up to our officers, and thanking them for their professionalism. And our officers, of course, are thanking the protesters, for how well they have done to keep any violence from occurring. So, we certainly hope and pray that continues. So I just wanted to make sure I thanked you all for that and thanked our community for that. In that conversation that we had with the young leaders, it was a very real, very emotional and passionate discussion, about what's going on in our nation and even in our city. And there was basically 4 demands that were, requests or recommendations or whatever words you want to use there that they would like to see. And we were able to talk through those. One of those was about one of our officers being back at work, and they were pleased to know that he is, back at work inside, until the grand jury. So they were pleased to know that. We were able to answer that one immediately. Of course, the issue of the body-worn camera footage being released, and State Attorney Campbell answered that, and I'm sure you all are aware of his belief and his passion and where he stands on that issue. And then the third one was the app, which we just talked about. And then the last one, of course, is the Citizen Review Board, which is what we're on now. And there are many experts on this topic, and this discussion has occurred for several years, especially since the early 90s, when Rodney King occurred. and that's when you first started hearing of these type of events. But basically, there's 3 type of oversight committees or councils or boards or whatever you want to call them. One's an investigative model. It gives civilians the power to independently look at events that occur and investigate those agencies that are involved with that, and they may or may not have subpoena power. If you heard the state attorney talk about it, you know that in order for someone to get subpoena power, that has to come from the legislature. The second type is a review board, which is the typical language that is used. And there are about 7 agencies in the state of Florida that have a review board. Only one of those that we've been able to determine thus far has subpoena power, and that would be the Miami Police Department. The last type is more of a newer concept, which deals with an auditor or a monitor-focused type board, and it's a hybrid structure, which is focused on kind of large-scale, systematic issues that an agency may face. And it tries to take kind of the best parts of each of those others and work those together. And they do things like studying the effectiveness of body-worn cameras while also reviewing some individual cases, but again, after those investigations are complete. So in that model, again, without legislative input and power, they don't have the power to subpoena. So it has pros and cons to all of those. We firmly believe that our Citizen Advisory Council that we started setting up back in January, started planning for that, will certainly address these needs, and that's the reason we were so purposeful in moving this thing forward. Obviously, COVID-19 slowed that way down. I was very specific and purposeful in making sure that Deputy Chief Smith was over that she handled that. If you don't know, Pastor Rudy Ferguson was recommended to us from our business and religious leaders, and that's just not something we picked out of the air. We sought that input and got that input back and made that recommendation, and he graciously accepted to do that. But I think it's important for you and for our community to understand, I am completely out of that process, and that is very purposeful. In the people that applied for that and how Deputy Chief Smith and Pastor Ferguson go through that selection process in that meeting, I'm going to let her talk about that. But that group will have access to everything we do. And the purpose of that group is to provide oversight in the sense of they will look at our policies, they will look at our procedures, they will look at the things that we do, and they will make recommendations back to us and back to you and back to the community, because I want those to be public, on what we can do to improve how we do things at the police department. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Smith and let her talk a little bit more about the council.
Thank you. Just so you know, we had 86 people, 86 applications, and what we've decided at this point is just for our first meeting, it will be an actual face-to-face to kind of give them what our expectations will be. And it'll be, we didn't set like massive rules, just like right now we're looking at a year-long commitment. You're gonna have meetings. We wanna have at least 30 of those people commit to say, I'm gonna stay with this for at least a year. I'm gonna meet, attend these meetings, whether they're monthly, whether they're weekly, because I think for the first, I'm gonna say it, and it might make people mad, but y'all know how meetings are. I think for the first, I'm gonna say 6 weeks, because we have a lot that we have to accomplish. We're probably gonna have to meet every couple weeks just to kind of get everybody on the same page. So there's gonna be a lot to be discussed at that first meeting. So you're gonna get those first people that, oh, this is a new meeting and I wanna be at it because there's a lot of attention on it. They're gonna say, this is either gonna fail or it's not gonna fail. It's not gonna fail because we're attached to it. I'll just tell you that. But we want the commitment, we want the buy-in, and we want them to know what our expectations, and then they're going to set the rest of the rules for them to be engaged in what their commitment is. And then for them to go forward of what we're expecting from them, because the community is going to ultimately hold them, accountable to what they want them to do for us. So there's a lot of pressure, and some people are going to go, "Ooh, this is too much. I didn't sign up for this." So we want to have those extra people, because as we all know with committees, you're going to have 30 sign up and you're going to have 15 do all the work. So we want to have some cushion in there for when people start dropping off. So we're going to start with the 30, and then we're going to kind of see who all sticks with it. But we're at least want to plan for that first year to kind of hold everybody. And hopefully, I'm hoping all 30 stay, but I'm going to also be realistic. We want to have a mix of everybody, diversity. Of course, we're talking about diversity. We want north side, south side. So we want a mix of everybody from the community, as well as having everybody from different backgrounds. So once we looked at all the applications, so we have an idea of who we want at the table, but once we lay out the rules, we have an idea that some of those folks are going to go, "Oh yeah, I didn't sign up for all this. I got too much stuff going on in my life already. I can't commit to that." So then that way we'll know that we might have to pick somebody else. So those are kind of just our general guidelines of where we're at right now. But when we hold that first meeting in July, we're looking forward to seeing how everything's going to go from there. So we've got some good things, I think, moving forward. Hopefully it's COVID-19. I think we would have been so far ahead had that not happened. We would have been in a different space by now. But we're gonna move forward and get this thing rolling. And I'll answer any questions if you guys have any.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, did we have any comments on this particular item?
Yes, Mayor, this was the item where we had a couple of citizens submit comments on 11.03. That was prior to 11.10 being added, but one of those comments referenced committee or board, and another referenced application. So I'm sure they were right on point with what's just been discussed. So as with all of our other comments, they've already been made a part of the agenda, so citizens can see the full comments. In this case, we'll make sure there's a notation of both agenda items, the one where they submitted it, and then the one where it is obvious to me that they apply. We did receive one additional comment on this item just before the meeting. I don't have any idea what its contents were, and so it has not yet been added to the agenda, but it will be part of the public record when we record this meeting.
Excellent, great. Mr. Manager, this is just an update. There's no recommended action.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem, yes, ma'am.
I want to thank the chief and deputy chief for their report. But I must say that, as we mentioned, that the young leaders asked about a citizens review board. And not only the young leaders, some of the older leaders have asked as well. And when I came to the commission, I came in talking about it. So it's not because chief is there. It was prior to him becoming chief. Because there's been great talk in the community for a number of years about having a citizens review board. So what I've done is I've taken the liberty of doing some legwork. I've had a conversation based on I'm hearing a lot of feedback. Based on the conversation that took place on Sunday, I knew that Sheriff McNeil and Attorney Akbar had some preliminary discussion right there. And so I took that opportunity to speak with the sheriff to see if this is something that they would be interested in working with us on, and having a countywide citizen review board that would look at officer-involved shootings at the county as well as at the city, at TPD. And he said that that he was interested, and I have his permission to say that is something that he would be interested in. He did recognize, as I'm sure we all do, that there are some challenges that would need to be handled in order to do this. But I want to see both entities at the table having this discussion as well as having some information, some dialogue with the community. I've also taken the liberty of speaking with our city attorney, who has done she had done some research when I first came to the commission. When I was talking to her about it, so she had some handy information already. But I also asked her to find out what other groups, what other cities had citizen review boards, and we talked about some of the issues. Now, what I've been told is what citizens want is they want a review board that has subpoena power. And I asked her about that. So I just heard that will require legislation from the legislature. So, Madam Attorney, could you speak to that and give us some idea of what's going on in the rest of the state? And I agree, you need to look at the state of Florida, because the state of Florida, that's what we're going to have to abide by.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's a pleasure. I did have an opportunity earlier in the fall of last year to take a look at this issue. What I have found is there are a number, as the chief said, there are a number of different types of boards. I looked at the cities of Tampa, Fort Myers, St. Pete, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and Key West. And each has a citizen review board. I think for the most part, these boards recognize what I discussed with you regarding subpoena power and police officers. There was a case that was decided by the Florida Supreme Court in 2017 that specifically provided that to actually compel a police officer to come before a board to give testimony under oath was contrary to the law as is stated in Chapter 112, which talks about in 112.533, the Police Officer's Bill of Rights. Further, generally, the court said that anything that would conflict with the Bill of Rights as provided for in statute would be unlawful because it has been preempted by the Florida legislature. So I think that is why, for the most part, these boards only provide for an after-fact review of the actions of law enforcement officers. I think these communities, and we spoke with their legal advisors, they felt that even these after-fact reviews provided a level of public trust or increased the level of public trust because the citizens got an opportunity to talk about and see how the police officers handle themselves. And oftentimes, because these were trained persons on these boards, they saw and understood the police officers' policies, procedures, and why they acted as they did. So they felt did enhance public trust and provide for transparency, even though because of the Florida Supreme Court decision, it's more of an after-fact review. That is, after an internal affairs investigation, perhaps after the exemption no longer applies as to confidentiality, as was spoken of by both the sheriff as well as the state attorney.
And the after fact would also include being after the grand jury has had their opportunity, because as our conversation went, you don't want to interfere with the investigation before it gets to the grand jury. And I think I heard the state attorney saying something along those same lines. So with that being said, I would like to propose, or however we need to do it, because I know we're having a discussion now, that we pursue developing, creating a citizens review board, a joint one, where I saw someone suggested that the appointments to the board could be made by city and county commissions to make sure that both are well represented. But more importantly, I want us to begin to do that, make that happen. It won't help with what's going on right now, but we could begin anew and have something in place so that in the future, if something like this happens, heaven forbid, we have a place where citizens can organize, be a part of looking at what actually happened. Now, I know that the timing is just really, really bad that these things have happened. You know, it's unusual. But I am concerned not just about officer-involved shootings. I'm concerned about any death or crime that occurs in our city. And I want to make sure that TPD, Leon County Sheriff Department, they have the tools that they need to thoroughly investigate and bring people to justice for what they've done. Likewise, if an officer has done something that has caused death or harm, and they were not following the prescribed policy and procedure, the training, or the law, then likewise, we want that officer to also be held accountable. We see what's happening in Minneapolis, and as we're sitting here today, I understand that the 3 other officers are being charged. I don't know what the charge is, but the first officer charge has now been moved up to 2nd degree, from 3rd degree to 2nd degree murder. So what we want to do is we want to make sure we don't have any Minneapolis. We don't want any Minneapolis. We don't want any Louisville, Kentucky, and we don't want any Brunswick, Georgia, or any other situations like that happening in our community. So, Chief, I know you hear me. I know you hear me loud and clear. We cannot have this. And so what we got to do is we've got to get the citizens involved. I live on the South Side, okay? This is my community. I've worked in this community 30 years without a title and without pay. And I would be a poor frog to sit down here thinking that everything is okay. It is not okay. We are not okay. Not only are we suffering from shooting or harming ourselves, but then to have it compact with these officer-involved shootings. We've got to do some things differently. And the Citizen Review Board, forming it, will be a step in the right direction. We need to look at policies and procedures so that we can make sure that as time changed, policing has changed. Technology has changed. We've got to change with it. And we've got to do what we need to do to preserve life, but to be safe, to protect and to serve. I told somebody today, as a mother, when I gave birth, my job became to protect and to serve. So we need the police to have that same mindset. And so I think that the citizens will feel more comfortable and will feel like they're more involved if they knew that they had an organization that was going to look out for them, by them, and others who can help look at them. Now, we know that it will require training in police policies and procedures, so we would need someone who'll be willing to make that kind of commitment, DC Smith, to be willing to do that. So that's what I'm asking for, and if a motion is needed, I'm ready to do that, or whatever we need to do to get this thing moving, because at our next meeting, I would like to be able to report back, get a report back on where we are on that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your comments. Chief, you want to provide any comments specifically to the Mayor Pro Tem?
No, I mean, the thing I would like to add, and I know Deputy Chief Smith feels the same way, is that we are open to the discussion. And I think that's the main thing, is just to understand that we are all open to doing what our community wants us to do. And right now we have to operate under the system which we currently have. But if our community comes together and says they want that to change, then we certainly would be on board with that as well. So, we're open to the discussion. I think there are several different options that we can explore. I personally believe that the council that, we've set in place and set in motion will do much of what the community wants. But that doesn't mean we're not open to exploring many other options as well.
And Chief, if I could jump back in and say that I don't doubt that the council might be able to do that, but the council will be put together within TPD. The citizens want something that's been put together outside or external of TPD or Leon County Sheriff. They want something external. So I think that the council is very important because they can advise all along the way. But this group would only be activated in the event that there was an officer-involved shooting.
Sure, absolutely. And I agree with what you're saying, Mayor Pro Tem. I would just encourage the concept that it's not just within TPD. That is the reason Pastor Ferguson is on board as well. That is the reason, community leaders would have input into this as well. But I certainly agree with what you're saying.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson. We need you to unmute, Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry about that. Just a couple of questions for Commissioner Williams-Cox. One would be, who would staff this joint citizen review board, the joint board between the police department and the sheriff's department? And then would there be a duplication of effort between the citizen review board that the chief has set up and this police sheriff board that you're talking about that would be activated only in the event of a officer involved shooting? And then how will that interface with the duties of the state attorney's office?
Thank you for your questions. First of all, it would be my recommendation for the staffing would be just like we do with the Planning Commission. The county has representation, the city has representation, who are appointed, agreed upon by the whole commission, not a commissioner, but the whole commission would based on application. There'd be an application process, and and so it would be staffed by those individuals. So we don't have anybody being a part because they know a certain commissioner. It would be the whole commission, like we do, like I said, like the Planning Commission. And I don't see it as being a duplicate effort, because this is, and I appreciate what the chief has said, but the application for the advisory council, just like with the sheriff's advisory council, it went to the sheriff department, it went to TPD to decide who would be there. This group would not be selected by TPD, or it wouldn't be selected by Leon County Sheriff. It would be selected by the commissioners, the commission. Okay. And so it would give another set of citizens that were selected or approved by the commission, not by the agency, but by the commission to do that. Now, that's my thinking in it. I'm open. What was I got your last question?
How would their investigation coincide with what the state attorney is tasked?
It would not. It would be after the fact. It would be after after the grand jury, after charges or whatever. It would be like Madam Attorney said it best when we talked about it. It would be like a best practice.
Yeah.
They look at what occurred, what was available, how it occurred, and recommendations for how this could have been handled differently, or how it should be handled differently in the future.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Commissioner Bryant.
Agree. But wait, am I muted? No, I'm not. Okay. Well, my understanding of what Commissioner Williams-Cox has laid out, that and the chief, the current committee actually looks at current policies, procedures to determine compliance and things that are I don't want to say in the moment, but things that govern how we operate as an entity. The Citizens Review Board, total responsibility is an after the fact look at what happened, how it happened, and whether there are recommendations regarding what happened. And it is formed through input from citizens that have been recommended by both city and county, such that it's reflective of our entire community. First, I just want to know, do I have the basics right, Commissioner Williams-Cox?
Absolutely, you're right on target.
Okay, because I see their missions as being a little bit different with regards to what they will actually be doing. And the group that's put together now has a very distinct role, and I think that is very needed. And the other role, I think, would add on, in many instances, the credibility of the implementation of what the other group has ensured that we're doing. Because if we're following policy and procedure, we're bringing up issues as they come along, when we get to this post review, it should do nothing much more than put a rubber stamp on the fact that we're doing what's best for our community, such that citizens can embrace that for the exemplary department that we're saying that we represent. So I get it.
And if I could, Mr. Mayor, if I could just say, one slight correction, Commissioner Brown. We don't want a rubber stamp, but what we want is, after they've taken a real good look at it, we want to make sure that if there's a need for recommendations of policy changes or training changes or things like that, we want to make sure that that's the stamp that we get, that we did okay, but we need improvement. Or if everything went accordingly, then you get a check off that everything, it was good. It did what it needed to do. It's giving the citizens a voice, and that's what I'm hearing that is being asked for. And I will mention too that I was at a meeting prior to being elected in a room full of people. Everybody didn't know everybody. It was from all walks of life, and we had no real. And Commissioner Richardson, you were there as well. There was no structure to it, but a motion was made and a vote taken to have a citizens review board. Everybody there, and I don't remember how you voted, Commissioner Richardson. You may have come later, but everybody there voted to have a citizens review board. So I know it goes back years, but it has gone back to just last year, in 2018. So I think the time is right. The time is now to prove that Tallahassee is a leader in making sure that we're taking care of our citizens, but we're also taking care of our law enforcement. Because if law enforcement has done their job, then this group, the grand jury and this group will say they did their job. But if not, we want to be able to do a better job the next time.
Ms. Jackson, were you trying to say something on point? And I'm coming to you, Commissioner Matlow. I am.
Yes, Mayor, I was just wanting to to remind the commission that there is precedent for working with other governmental bodies. An example would be the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls, where we have an interlocal agreement and we have bylaws that were adopted by both commissions, the county commission and the city.
I want to give Commissioner Matlow this opportunity. Commissioner Bryan, are you on point?
Since Commissioner Williams-Cox responded to my comments, I just want to say that the very thing she said in the end is exactly what I was suggesting. Because if we do what we're supposed to do, which then when we get to a post-review, it should reflect that. I just wanted to shift that comment, but thank you, sir.
All right, excellent. Commissioner Matlow, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Mayor Pro Tem. I think we've heard this conversation coming from a bunch of different angles, and it's been in the community for a decade, 12 years at least. We've heard it proposed. I had an opportunity to watch some young people on a Facebook Live last night discuss this issue, and I mean, it can get detailed. We talk about the different types of committees, what Chief Rebel has set up and its intent, and kind of what they're looking for as being something different with a more independence and more of an oversight role. And I think there's a distinction. I think there's a use for both. When Chief Rebel described his committee, it wasn't going to be an oversight committee, but I mean, you have 86 people. If something happened in the community and there was a fire and you needed to get information out quick, you need a little buckets of water to go put it out. We absolutely need that. You know, we need that two-way communication with law enforcement, with the community. I think that's very valuable. But I also think what's being asked for is something a little bit different, and it does provide that oversight. And I think oversight, I mean, it never feels good. The citizens came to us and said they wanted an ethics board for oversight, and then that got established, and then it wanted more power. But I think at the end of the day, we gave them what they needed to feel good about it, to trust us, and to have that oversight. And it's established. It's in ordinance. It's something that will be here long after we're gone. Hopefully that's a long time from now. But it's not a committee that if a new chief comes in, or if we all leave and somebody wants to do something different. It's like the planning commission. It's in ordinance. It's in law, and it exists. And I think that's the type chief they're looking for. So Commissioner or Mayor Pro Tem, I'd just be curious on the city attorney mentioned different structures from around the state and different structures from around the city. I think it would be helpful to invite some of the young people in, hear their ideas, what structures they like best. I didn't know what your thought on next step would be, but how do we engage people who have ideas? I know Attorney Akbar mentioned he was on the Sheriff's Advisory Committee. He had some ideas. How do we bring all the ideas to the table and make sure we're getting the end product that people are asking for?
Well, I thank you for that question. I think that we do want young people. We need people from all walks of life in our community, because it's the ask on Sunday from the young people, but the old people we've been asking for a while, and so we don't want to exclude. Well, I shouldn't say old people. I'm not that old. Seasoned people, I should say, have been asking for it for a while. So us seasoned folks, this will be an opportunity to have some intergenerational planning, and because there are things that the seasoned people don't know that we can learn, and there are things that the young people don't know that they can learn. So this will be an opportunity to have some of that intergenerational sharing of knowledge and understanding to bring this to bring in those ideas. I will welcome that. I will welcome that.
Excellent, Commissioner Matlow.
I was going to go back and see if he had anything else.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm happy to make a motion if you need it. I think it would be beneficial to bring in all those people, get ideas about the structure, and have it come back, as soon as possible. We can't create.
How about if I make the motion and you second it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Aye. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I see Chief and Deputy Chief waving over there.
Let's let the chief in DC weigh in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let the DC weigh in, but we both feel strongly about this.
So one thing we would like to add is just whoever is sitting on the committees is that they at least attend, whether it's Leon County's Police Academy. Yeah, they need
absolutely
to TPD's Academy. They need to attend those academies, because that's going to lay down the framework for moving forward. So
absolutely
ask for that.
So before we make the motion real quick, I'm sorry, DC, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries. But that would be one of our requirements, or what we would ask. That first.
Mayor Pro Tem, let me get Commissioner Richardson real quick before we get a motion. And when you think about making your motion, let's formalize it in the way of a motion, but I also want to have the opportunity for us to work through it at the next commission meeting, which would be appropriate for public policy to bring something back. But I definitely think we're heading in the right direction. Commissioner Richardson, you got the floor?
Yeah, just a couple things, and this is for the chief or the deputy chief, because I think what has been lost in a lot of this are some of the things that we're already doing. Nobody has talked about the emphasis that we have put on community policing in this community and the difference that has made. Chief, you used the example of how those cop squad officers in the bond community helped de-escalate some of that because of their relationships with individuals in the community. We're doing that. Do we need to do more? Maybe, but that has been lost in this discussion. These young people maybe need to have, when we interface with them, talk to them about what we have done and our commitment to community policing and the effect that it has had, in essence, driving down the crime rate by 30% in the bond community. With the addition of the cameras, our cop squad being headquartered there at Smith Williams. I mean, those are the things that we need to talk about that we have in place. Can they be improved? Maybe, but it's not like we haven't put things in place to address these very kinds of issues. And I think that's been lost in this. And then maybe the students, the advisory council, members of the community at large need to know and understand what we do, or what officers have to go through, be it at the academy or follow-up training once they're hired. For the training for officers in situations like this. What is it that they do? How are they supposed to respond? What triggers a taser as opposed to a pistol? You see what I'm saying? And then maybe if they have a better understanding of that process, because I've seen instances where a taser, it's like a pinch on the wrist. You know, it doesn't do a thing, or it doesn't operate at all. And so, you know, people need to understand those processes as well. And so they have a better appreciation for what a police officer is going through at the time they're making those kinds of split decisions, and that there is training available for them. So I just want to make sure that we're educating the public, I guess is where I'm trying to go with this, on these kinds of issues that confront our police department.
And Mr. Mayor, can I respond on point?
Please, and then I know the chief wants to also weigh in as well.
Okay, I think I can remember my response, Chief, until you finish, if you want to go ahead.
Thank you. All I was going to say is I think you're exactly right, Commissioner Richardson. And, you know, most people don't understand that TPD's use of force policy is an exemplar policy with CALEA standards. You know, the things that we have in our policy for de-escalation are throughout that policy. You know, and most people don't understand that that's already in our policy. Most people don't understand that we already do fair and impartial training for our officers. Procedural justice training is part of our every year training. The in-service training, we incorporate that in everything that we do, and de-escalation is taught in every one of the scenarios we do. So many of the things that the public is asking for, TPD has been doing for years. And again, that's part of exactly what you're saying, Commissioner, that we've got to get that education out to our community to let them know that we are doing these things. You know, not to say that we can't improve. We can always improve, and we can always do things better. You know, but many of the things that are being asked for, TPD has been doing for years.
Oh, okay, thank you, Chief. I want to go back and say that it was never my intent to lose anything in the conversation, because I didn't say something for this to replace anything. This is in addition to. And if our community, am I mute? I'm sorry. If our community does not know about this, then we've got to make sure that they know. And I went through the sheriff's training. And so I know what I know because I went through that training, and they do ride-alongs. Those are the kinds of things that would definitely be required of anyone who's going to serve here. And they will also receive the education about the community policing. They will also receive the education about the kind of things that you've been doing for years. Because let me tell you something. To the common John Doe or Jane Doe, we have no idea what TPD does. We know that when we call you, you come. And we hoping that you're going to come and give us some resolve. But sometimes when you come, we're afraid. And sometimes when you come, we don't get the resolve that we wanted. So we've got to put some power in the citizens' hands to feel like that you're to let them know what you're doing to protect and to serve. And when they feel like they're not being protected or served, and I must admit that I haven't always received the greatest protection and service from TPD. You know, when I get pulled over, they don't care about why I was speeding, why I was doing a 53 and a 35. They didn't want to hear that, but they were nice enough to give me a little ticket that I could come and make my annual contribution. But it's those kinds of things that the common citizen is not aware of, but they want to know that somebody is going to be aware, especially in these officer-involved shootings. Mm-hmm. That right now the country is feeling pretty darn naked, especially Black men and the mothers and fathers of these Black men who are and Black females who are suffering at the hand of police officers. And it's not just white officers. You saw what happened in Atlanta. to a Spelman, a young lady from Spelman. You know how prestigious that is? While on television, Commissioner Richardson, you say that taser's like a pinch on the wrist. When they were tasing that young man, he didn't look like he was enjoying it, and he didn't look like it was a pinch on the wrist either. But they did a lot of stuff that training was needed, but you can't train the community when you got officers doing that kind of stuff while on television, especially. So all I'm saying is, I'm not saying that that you all are doing a bad job. I'm just saying, my job is to represent the citizens, and that's what I'm doing. The citizens said, not just one, the citizens said that they want, and they've been wanting, a citizens review board. And I think that the time is now. This is an opportunity to show that we have nothing to hide. We're transparent. We want the additional oversight. We welcome the additional oversight. So with that in mind, I'd make the motion that we form the Citizen Review Board that will be a joint venture between the city and the county through working together with the county and the city and citizens to come up with and the city attorney to advise us, of course, on what state law is, to make sure that we're bringing a Citizen Review Board to this community. I think that we've got to do this. We really got to do it. Trust me, we got to do it.
Mayor Pro Tem has properly moved the creation of a joint citizen review board. It is seconded by the mayor. Commissioner Richardson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Williams-Cox, I think you misunderstood what I was saying.
Okay.
Not that these things were lost in this conversation, the general conversation with the community. Okay. I mean, if you talk to people out there, they couldn't tell you what we're doing in terms of community policing. A lot of them couldn't tell you that for several summers running, we would be in neighborhoods, going door to door with Operation Safe Neighborhoods and informing residents about how they can take back their neighborhoods, giving them information and building those that's the general.
I got you. Thank you. I understand.
And we need to, as you have said, we need to get that information out to the public so that they understand that these police officers do go through this training, what it looks like, and that we're doing the community policing and what those efforts look like. And so we just need to do a better job of getting that information out to the public, either through this Citizen Review Board, through the Citizen Advisory Council and Student Citizen Advisory Council that's been being set up, the Police Athletic League, the Police Academy, the Sheriff's Academy, all of those mechanisms for getting this kind of information out so that the general public does have a better understanding of what police officers have to go through for their training, the efforts that we have supported in terms of community policing to improve relationships between the police department and the public. That's what I mean that's been lost in this whole general discussion.
All right, I got you.
But I support your motion wholeheartedly and think we should move forward with it.
Thank you.
Chief, I certainly do appreciate you beginning this journey with the Citizens Review Committee, and I think you have the backing of expanding this and moving forward as a community, as reflected in the motion by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by myself. We look forward to this item coming back so that we can continue to work on it, finalize it, ratify it, and move this community forward. Seeing no other further comment, all those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Thank you. Mr. Manager, do we have any other business to come before the City Commission?
No, sir, we do not.
Mayor Pro Tem, any ideas, sharing of ideas and commission information?
Well, I will just say this. Thank you all for the support of the Citizen Review Board. We have a great opportunity here in Tallahassee to continue to lead. We're already leading, but we have a great opportunity to lead. And I thank you all for let's do the journey. Chief Rebel, Deputy Chief Smith, and the other deputy chiefs, I see you in the community. I like what I'm seeing. And let's just continue to protect and to serve. And when we don't get it right, let's just go ahead on and confess we didn't get it right. And let's just be transparent and let's get it right next time. I'm just glad to be working with all of you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, I understand we have two citizens' comments on non-agenda items to enter into the record.
Yes, Mayor, actually had 3 comments on unagenda items, although they may speak to item 11.1 as well. 2, just with a variety of concerns about Tallahassee Police Department, and then 1 specific to the collective bargaining process with PBA. Those will be entered into the record, and those are the last comments we have for this meeting.
Great. Commissioner Richardson, you're recognized.
Oh, no, I didn't have anything.
Commissioner Bryant. Commissioner Bryant, you're recognized.
Thank you. I want to bring up one, well, maybe 2 things. The first one is very important, and that on Friday evening, there will be a community, really a bond, family, community health, and mental illness, mental wellness awareness vigil, and it will be held at Smith Williams, Walker Ford, thank you, the open field to ensure that we have the appropriate distancing, and we're encouraging everyone to wear a mask. And the purpose is for a call to action. We have talked and we have prayed and we have marched. And right now we need to be in the posture of developing very definitive actions that we can take as a community to move forward. So I want to take this opportunity to invite the community to be there to share with us 7 o'clock on Friday. And the second thing is that, and I will follow up with Angela. I received a call late today from FAMU, from the COVID testing site, and they were sharing that there are people in the community who were saying that they wish that they could get over there. They don't live near FAMU. They may live in Frenchtown. They may live in Providence or whatever. So I just want us to think creatively, maybe for a day of a free bus ride to come to get tested so they can bring whomever and not have any challenges with getting there. I don't know if that's even possible, and I'm open to any other idea, but I really don't want them to leave the community and not have had everyone who wanted to get there, especially in minority communities, and they could not get there. So I just offer that, and I'll follow up with Angela, but I wanted to bring it before the board tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Commissioner Matlow, you're recognized for comments.
Great, thank you, and thank you to all of our colleagues as we continue to do these online meetings and get real business done. I didn't have a chance to reply to Commissioner Richardson earlier. I think that's a great idea, letting people know what we're doing with community policing. One thing the sheriff said in the conversation with some of the young people was everybody should know what every department's doing with policing, use of force, like what their policy is. Because if that's what they have a problem, if they have a problem, then maybe with that. But if it's good, we should show them that it's good as well. So, and I'll be the first to say I don't know the ins and outs of everything, but I do think that transparency and getting that information out to people is key. So thank you for those comments. That's all I got.
Excellent. I think I speak for all of us when I say that these are difficult times here in our community, across the state and across the nation. We're facing a global pandemic. We were all frustrated and sad and angry by, the events in Minneapolis. We all want answers to what's going on. We have deep generational systematic issues right here in our community that have to be addressed. And I am committed, as each and every one of you, to working together to move this community forward. I ask that we all pray for peace, and we pray for this community along with all communities. Not only are we dealing with COVID-19, not only are we dealing with the current social issues and social justice issues that many of our brothers and sisters in the community are out allowing their voice to be heard, but we also have a named tropical storm in the Gulf of Mexico that we are monitoring closely. There is a lot going on, and I know that by sticking together, we will move this community forward, and we're going to do the best job that we possibly can. We hear the community. We know that there are very frustrated individuals, mad individuals. We know that there are changes that we must address, and we will. And with that, I bid you a good night. Let's pray for peace and let's move forward. We stand adjourned.